Any other? Yes, please. The microphone here.
I'll say thank you for the organizers and for all those talks. It's very seldom that you have such a variety of talks, all to the point in their different issues. I took the word to the floor because of the question raised over here on this, this underwater weather forecasting. And in Norway, we have developed or are developing something called ferry box, where you actually have an instrument you put in the ordinary ferries, and you take in the water, and you take the temperature and salinity. You can take samples if you want, and you can also connect this to satellites to get a sort of synoptic picture. And the idea is that if you can install these instruments, which in a way free of charge, are moving across the oceans, then you have some of those things you were asking for, where you can map these fronts, and to a very low cost, because you don't have to employ extra instruments. They are there on the ferries. So this has been installed now in the ferry going from Oslo to Copenhagen, and also on Hurtigruten going all the way along the Norwegian coast. And it will also be installed now on a ship going from Tromsø to Svalbard. But it is in the innovative state, and it's developed, and should it really be effective, you need a network. You could install it on this ferry going from ferries to Scotland, to Denmark, to Bergen, and to Iceland, and then you would cover all this area. And then again, as I say, you can combine it with satellites to get a better picture.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yes, Hjalmar, you wonder?
But if you saw this image of ocean fronts that I showed you, there is chaos out there. And this will give one line when the ship passes by. But then it's gone, and then there's nothing. So indeed, this also, you need a multi-platform approach with ferry boxes, sea gliders, and whatever you can get from satellites, models, and so on, because the reality is so complex. So this ferry box is just one line, and it will fit in nicely, you're right.
Okay, thank you for that. Yes, please.
I don't know if it's a question from me, but after listening to this presentation this morning, on one hand, we have the traditional fisheries management, which is focusing on removing of organisms from the ecosystem, recruitment, and so on. And we know that many of the fish stocks are below the sustainable level. On the other hand, we have the CO2 emission, the climate change, and the big challenge is to reduce the CO2 emission and in the Faroes, the biggest group of CO2 emission is fishing vessels. So I think a simple solution is to reduce the fishing days and the quotas, which will have a positive influence on the CO2 emission and to the stocks, bigger fish, and that's a big focusing area, in my opinion.
Well, thank you for that. That's obviously a very crucial comment in. Yes, sorry. Yes, yes. I should have asked you beforehand to introduce yourselves before you make a comment. That was Johanna Olsen from the Environmental Agency. Can I have some comments on that comment? Yes, Oliver. I see. I think I'd rather you use the microphone.
My name is Oliver Jöklader from Shipowners Association. And I think it's very interesting what is presented here this morning, and special Chalmar Hatun. And for the industry, it would be very important to reduce the oil costs, because it really causes troubles in some of our groups of vessels. And we have already a tradition to collaborate with the scientists. And I think just in this pelagic area as well, we would greet it welcome to further collaboration there, and to save money and to save the environment and CO2. So, yes.
Yes, it has been very interesting this morning, but I too wonder that...
Sorry, could you introduce yourself first, please?
Oh yes, I am from a Danish Society of Living Sea, a little society in Denmark. And but I wonder, the climate changes are going to be very dramatic, and we all know that we have to do something very dramatic to do that now. And I wonder why we're not speaking about in fishery management to stop the trawling, and instead of that work more with passive fishing gears. The consumption of the fuel in the trawling is more than double than if you use passive fishing gears. Depends on what kind, of course. So we have to focus on that. We can not continue trawling. We have to stop that and find out how we can catch all the fish with passive fishing gears. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good day. My name is Rekve Reinert from the Ministry of Fisheries here on the Faroes. I have a very concrete question to Mr. Ellen Smith. You were relatively negative and critical to the common policy in the EU. And I have a question for you, and that is, can you define very shortly the complete alternative to the common fishery policy in EU?
Well, that's a very short question, a very long answer, I suspect. And in fairness, I don't think I was relatively critical of the common fisheries policy. I think I was totally critical of it, to be honest. What the answer looks like needs to be worked out in a new way, and this is our point about what we're doing in Scotland with the clean piece of paper policy. We're getting the stakeholders together, and we've had a flavour of that today. We've had the environmental argument, the industry argument, the scientific argument. And frankly, the people who make the politicians, who make the decisions, are those who are elected to do it, and that's us. And that's why we need you guys in the room coming up with a management regime with us. Because the last people who are qualified, I'm a lawyer by profession, I don't claim any particular insight into how industry works or science works, but I do know how to take a brief, and I do know how to take information and use it and process it, and look at the big picture, hopefully. And that's what the European Union current way of doing things just does not manage to achieve, because it becomes a political negotiation between 27 different countries that are trading off different interests. And I've heard these discussions. The Austrians will trade their votes in the fisheries negotiations for some other votes in agriculture, because growing potatoes is important to them, fisheries isn't.